like and subscribe, and leave a comment below. Beyond Antarctica, Chapter 24. As they made their way north, the landscape gradually changed. The dense jungle with its thick foliage and humid air began to thin out, replaced by a rocky terrain that presented new challenges. The path became steeper and more treacherous, each step demanding careful placement to avoid slipping on the loose gravel. The crew moved in a single file. The air was cooler here, the oppressive humidity of the jungle giving way to a refreshing breeze that carried the scent of pine trees, as birds of prey circled overhead, with their cries echoing through the valley. "We need to watch our step," Todd warned. "The ground's unstable, and one wrong move could send us tumbling down." They climbed over large boulders that blocked their path, their hands and feet seeking out stable holds. The rock faces were jagged, and the occasional slip resulted in scraped hands and knees. Narrow ledges tested their balance. The drop-offs on either side were sheer, plummeting down into shadowy ravines that seemed bottomless. They moved slowly and deliberately, with their backs pressed against the rock walls for support. Every now and then, a rock would dislodge and clatter down the slope. "Steady, everyone," John called from the front. "We're making good progress, but let's not rush." Bob, bringing up the rear, "Keep moving, but watch your footing," he added. Hours passed, and the landscape continued to change. The rocky terrain gave way to a high-altitude plateau, the air thinner and the temperature cooler, as snow-capped peaks loomed in the distance. The plateau was dotted with patches of hardy grass and shrubs. It was as if the top of this mountain was just chopped off, creating a flat plateau where one should not be, hidden in the sky. "Let's take a short break," John suggested, finding a flat rock to sit on. "We need to keep our strength up." They sat in a circle, sharing water and energy bars, with their breaths visible in the cool air. The view from the plateau was breathtaking, offering a panoramic vista of the island's varied landscapes. Far below, the jungle stretched out like a green carpet, while the rocky cliffs and distant mountains painted a rugged picture of untamed beauty. Todd remarks with his eyes scanning the horizon. "It just goes to show how diverse this place is." After their brief rest, they resumed their journey, the path now leading them through a series of winding trails. The altitude made the going tough, each step requiring more effort as the air grew thinner. Bob said, "Can we go a bit slower?" The trail led them to a ridge that overlooked a valley below. Nestled in the center of the valley was a massive stone structure, similar to the temple they had found before, but even more impressive. "This must be it," John said. They descended into the valley with care, the path steep and winding. Loose rocks made the descent treacherous, and they moved slowly to avoid slipping. As they neared the building, the scale of the structure became apparent. It was monumental, its architecture a testament to the advanced civilization that had built it. The structure was partially hidden by the surrounding cliffs, its stone walls covered in intricate carvings and symbols that glowed faintly in the fading light. There seemed to be a hum in the air that came from nowhere, but yet everywhere at the same time. The entrance to the temple was flanked by towering statues of ancient guardians, their faces stern and watchful. The massive doors were slightly ajar, revealing a shadowy interior that beckoned them forward. "Stay alert," Bob cautioned. "We don't know what's inside." With their flashlights piercing the darkness, the interior was vast, the high ceilings supported by massive columns adorned with carvings that told the story of the ancient civilization. The air was cool and stale, with a moldy smell that seemed to just hang there. In the center of the building was a large chamber, its walls lined with ancient machinery and devices. The technology was far beyond anything they had ever seen, a blend of art and science that hinted at the advanced knowledge of the civilization. "This is incredible," Bob said. "The technology here is centuries ahead of anything I have seen." They moved through the chamber, examining the devices and trying to understand their purpose. It was clear that this place was a center of innovation and knowledge, a repository of the civilization's greatest achievements, a museum of some kind. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, similar to the one where they had found the key. Above it, suspended in midair, was another crystal sphere, glowing with a soft, ethereal light. "This must be it," John said, approaching the pedestal. He placed the key into a slot at the base of the pedestal, and the sphere began to glow brighter. The chamber was filled with a low hum that slowly raised in pitch. The sphere projected a holographic image into the air. It showed a vast network of energy lines and nodes connecting various locations across the island and beyond. "This is a map of the ancient civilization's energy grid," Bob said. "It shows how they harnessed and distributed energy across their entire empire." The image shifted, revealing detailed schematics of the ancient devices. It was a treasure trove of knowledge, more than they had ever hoped to find. "We need to document all of this," Kim said, pulling out her notebook. "This information is priceless," taking a few key notes. As they studied the holographic map, they noticed a particular location marked with an elaborate symbol. It was different from the others, and it seemed to be of great significance. John said, pointing to the symbol, "The key has led us here, and now it's showing us where to go next." John knew they were on the brink of uncovering something truly extraordinary, something that could change their understanding of the world and its history. They spent the next few hours documenting everything they could from the holographic display. Bob sketched the symbols and annotations, while Tony took detailed photographs. Todd and Kim studied the information, trying to piece together the puzzle of the ancient civilization's legacy. As they worked, night arrived without notice, casting a golden glow through the entrance. "We should rest," Kim said, closing her notebook. "We will need to be at our best for tomorrow's journey." The crew agreed and set up camp. The ancient structure provided a safe and secure shelter. As they settled in for the night, their minds were filled with thoughts of the discoveries yet to come. The next morning, they woke to the sound of rustling outside their tents. Todd was the first to emerge, blinking in the early light. His eyes widened in alarm when he saw the massive bear rampaging through their supplies with its nose buried in their food stores. "Bear!" Todd shouted, grabbing his shotgun and alerting the others. The bear, a colossal beast with thick matted fur, lifted its head and roared, revealing its sharp teeth. The crew scrambled, knowing they had to act fast to protect their remaining supplies and their lives. "Spread out," John ordered, with his pistol at the ready. Tony and Bob moved to the sides, trying to encircle the bear without getting too close. The bear swung its massive paws, knocking over equipment and scattering supplies. It was a fierce creature, driven by hunger. Todd fired a warning shot into the air, hoping to scare the bear away, but the beast was undeterred. Its eyes were filled with a primal fury. It charged at Todd, who barely managed to dive out of the way, with the bear's claws missing him by inches. "Keep it distracted," John shouted, aiming for the bear's shoulder. He fired, the bullet striking the bear and causing it to yelp in pain. The bear turned its attention to John, giving Tony and Bob a chance to move closer. Tony grabbed a long stick and jabbed it at the bear, trying to keep it at bay. The bear swiped at the stick, snapping it in half with a single blow. Bob threw a rock, hitting the bear on the side and drawing its attention away from Tony. "Over here, you big brute. Pick on someone your own size, buddy," Bob taunted. The bear charged at Bob, who rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the bear's powerful jaws. Todd and John fired again. Their shots hit their mark, but the bear's fury only seemed to grow. In a desperate move, Kim pulled out a flare gun and fired it at the ground in front of the bear. The bright light and sizzling noise startled the beast, causing it to hesitate. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Kim shouted and waved her arms, trying to scare the bear away. The bear, frightened by the bright light and heat, turned and lumbered away. The crew stood there, panting and shaken, but relieved that the immediate danger had passed. "Is everyone all right?" John asked, looking around at the campsite. Tony replied, "Just a few scratches," checking his arm where the bear's claws had grazed him. "That was too close. We need to secure our supplies better," Bob said, picking up the scattered food and equipment. "And someone will keep a watch tonight. We will not make the same mistake again." They quickly set about repairing the damage and packing up their campsite. The encounter with the bear had shaken them, but it also served as a reminder of the dangers that still lurked on the island. With their supplies secured, the crew resumed their journey. The path ahead led them to a wide ravine. its depth shrouded in mist. Spanning the ravine was an old, broken rope bridge, its planks rotted and its ropes frayed. "We can't cross that," Todd said, shaking his head. "It's too dangerous." John surveyed the ravine. "We can chop down a couple of trees and create a makeshift bridge. It's our best option." They set to work, using their axes to fell 2 large trees. The trees crashed down across the ravine, creating a narrow but sturdy bridge. They secured the trees in place, testing their stability before attempting to cross. "One at a time," John instructed. "Move slowly and keep your balance." Tony went first. He made it across safely, followed by Todd, then Bob. John was the last to go, his eyes fixed on the opposite side. As he neared the end, the tree bridge creaked and shifted, but it held firm. They breathed a sigh of relief as they all made it across. As they continued their journey, the terrain became even more challenging. They climbed steep slopes and navigated narrow ledges, their progress slow but steady. The air grew thinner as they ascended, the altitude making every step more difficult. After several days of arduous travel, they finally reached their destination. They stood at the entrance of a vast hidden valley, its beauty breathtaking. The path took them through dense forests where the foliage was thick. They navigated through the trees. The forest was alive with the sounds of wildlife, and the ground was covered in a carpet of leaves. After several hours of trekking through the forest, they came to a large clearing. In the center stood an ancient stone pillar covered in moss and vines. Kim approached it cautiously, brushing away the vegetation to reveal intricate carvings. "This looks like a marker of some kind," Kim said, studying the symbols. John nodded. "Let's proceed with caution." They moved forward. As they passed the pillar, they heard a faint clicking sound. Todd raised his hand to signal them to stop. "Did you hear that?" Todd asked. Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them gave way, and they found themselves sliding down a steep chute. They tumbled and slid, unable to stop their descent. The chute spat them out into a large cavern where they landed in a heap, all piled on top of each other, with their gear tossed about. They looked around the cavern, which was dimly lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The air was cool and damp, and the cavern floor was uneven and rocky. "A trap," Bob muttered. "Let's find a way out of here." They began to explore the cavern. The walls were covered in carvings depicting scenes of death. It was clear that this place had been designed to deter intruders. They continued through the cavern, encountering more traps. There were pits filled with spikes which they had to carefully navigate around, and walls that shot out bursts of flame, forcing them to time their movements perfectly to avoid being burned. "This place is a death trap," Bob said, wiping sweat from his brow. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the end of the cavern. A narrow tunnel led them back to the surface, where they emerged into the fresh air, grateful to have escaped the underground maze. As they pushed through the dense foliage, the jungle suddenly gave way to a clearing, revealing a sight that made them all stop in their tracks. Rising majestically from the center of the clearing was a large stone structure, its imposing architecture almost identical to the temple they had left behind. The stone walls were covered in the same intricate carvings and symbols, glowing faintly in the dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy. The crew stood in awe, taking in the grandeur of the building before them. The familiarity of the design filled them with a sense of déjà vu, yet the air around this temple felt different, charged with a sense of mystery. It was as if the building itself was aware of their presence. They all felt as if they were being watched as they prepared to enter the building. They all could not help but wonder what might lie just beyond those doors. This is not goodbye, nor the end. Until the story continues, my friends. B.N.Rocker.